Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he has instructed Israel to begin peace talks with Lebanon, but added there is no ceasefire and that strikes on Hezbollah will continue. This comes after Israeli strikes on Wednesday killed at least 300 people in Lebanon and wounded more than 1,000 others. Iran's supreme leader said in a statement attributed to him and read out on state TV that the management of the Strait of Hormuz will enter a new phase. His comments come as ship traffic through the key waterway remains heavily disrupted despite a temporary ceasefire. The Bank of Korea has held its benchmark interest rate steady for the 7th straight time at 2.5%, amid renewed inflationary pressures and foreign exchange instability. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered peace talks with Lebanon following recent strikes that killed more than 300 people. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's optimistic that Israel will exercise restraint amid the U.S. negotiations with Iran. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
While the two-week ceasefire with Iran holds, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made it clear on Thursday that Lebanon is not part of that deal.
I want to tell you there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We are continuing to strike Hezbollah with force, and we will not stop until we restore your security. Last night, I instructed the cabinet to open direct negotiations with Lebanon in order to achieve two goals. One, the disarmament of Hezbollah. Two, a historic, sustainable peace agreement between Israel and Lebanon.
The announcement follows the deadliest day of the renewed conflict. The Lebanese Health Ministry reports that Israeli airstrikes on Wednesday killed more than 300 people and wounded over 1,100 others. The fighting in Lebanon remains an obstacle to a fragile two-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran, which was reached earlier this week. End-of-war negotiations between Washington and Tehran are scheduled to begin this Saturday, April 11th, in Islamabad, led by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. In a phone interview with U.S. broadcaster NBC on Thursday, U.S. President Donald Trump said he is very optimistic about the upcoming talks. Trump told the network that Iranian leaders are being far more reasonable in private, stating they are agreeing to terms because their military has been conquered. However, the broader truce is teetering. Iran is still severely restricting commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, arguing that Israel's continued strikes on Hezbollah violate the core conditions of the ceasefire. Addressing this variable during his Thursday interview, President Trump stated that Israel is scaling back its operations in Lebanon. He confirmed that he recently spoke with Netanyahu by phone, telling NBC that the Israeli leader will exercise restraint to facilitate the broader negotiation process. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Iran's supreme leader says the management of the Strait of Hormuz will enter a new phase, signaling tighter control over one of the world's most crucial oil choke points. The warning comes as ship traffic through the strait plunged to under 10% of normal levels, and attacks on Saudi energy facilities further strain global supply. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has signaled tighter control over the Strait of Hormuz, raising concerns about new costs and further disruption to global oil flows. In a statement attributed to Khamenei, read out on Iranian state television, marking 40 days since the death of his father on Thursday, Khamenei said Iran would elevate its management of the strait to a new dimension. His remarks have fueled fears that Tehran could impose a transit fee of up to $2 million per vessel. Khamenei also declared a decisive victory over the United States and Israel, while emphasizing Iran does not seek war, but will respond as a unified force with its regional allies. Meanwhile, ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz remains severely disrupted despite a temporary ceasefire, operating at less than 10% of normal levels. Just 7 vessels passed through in the past 24 hours, compared to about 140 on a typical day before the conflict. Hundreds of tankers remain stranded in the Gulf, contributing to a roughly 20% cut in global oil supply in what analysts describe as an unprecedented disruption. Attacks on Saudi energy infrastructure have also reduced output by about 600,000 barrels per day and cut pipeline flows by another 700,000 barrels per day. Saudi officials say multiple facilities have been hit, adding further strain to global energy markets. The two-week ceasefire announced this week appears increasingly fragile as Israel pressed ahead with strikes in Lebanon, and Iran showed little sign of easing its near-total blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a key route for roughly one-fifth of global energy supplies. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Seoul has appointed former ambassador to Kuwait, Chung Byung-ah, as special envoy to Iran. According to the Foreign Ministry on Friday, his role will be to exchange views on the situation in the Middle East and hold discussions on the safety of Korean nationals, ships, and crew, as well as issues related to the passage of vessels, including Korean ships. Some 26 Korean vessels are currently in regional waters. Foreign Minister Cho Hyun on Thursday told his Iranian counterpart that a special envoy will be sent, which was welcomed by the Iranian side. Chung has also previously served in the Korean embassy in Iran. A former Trump national security official known for advising the incumbent administration on America First policies was in Seoul this week to discuss matters concerning the Korean Peninsula. He believes Washington and Pyongyang are both interested in resuming dialogue as soon as this year. Our Oh Soo-young sat down with him.
A North Korea-US summit could take place this autumn, resuming top-level talks that broke down in 2019 over the terms of denuclearization. That's according to Fred Fleitz, former National Security Council Chief of Staff of the first Trump administration.
There's a lot of talk in the U.S. that there could be a summit in the second half of this year. I've seen signs that North Korea is interested in this. They want some kind of guarantees that denuclearization will be off the table. I've heard signs that they may want the Trump administration to recognize them as nuclear power. I don't think that's true. That's not going to happen. I can see talk with no preconditions, and then we try to get into the nuclear program. That's obviously going to be on the table.
While a Kim-Trump summit may be difficult amid the war in Ukraine, in which North Korea has been a major weapons supplier to Russia, Fleitz says there are positive signs that Pyongyang may be showing restraint.
The good news here is that there was an NIS report just this week that North Korea has not been helping Iran in this war because it wants to talk to President Trump. I think that's very promising. And I wish we'd hear reports like that from Russia and China, but if that's true, it's a very good sign.
On concerns among America's allies over security assurances, Fleitz said Washington stands firm on its promise of extended deterrence against North Korea and that US troops in Korea are not being reduced. With growing talk of modernizing the alliance, Fleitz welcomed the bilateral push for Seoul to build nuclear-powered submarines, process spent fuel, and enrich uranium.
And I think the details of what was agreed to at the head of state level, this really needs to be hashed out quickly, because I think it's crucial for South Korea's security, also for American security.
Defining the Trump doctrine as reflective of what average Americans desire, not an isolationist foreign policy, Fleitz expressed confidence in support for the Korea-US alliance.
There's a very warm relationship between the United States and South Korea. It stems from the support of Americans who fought in the Korean War. My father fought in the Korean War, and my family has a strong relationship with South Korea. There's been some complaining by President Trump recently about Iran. This is not going to affect the fact that President Trump regards this as a model relationship. And there may be bumps in the road, but it's not going to undermine this crucial relationship between two strong friends and strategic allies.
Fleitz next month will release a book on the history of US policy on North Korea. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
North Korean Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee and her Chinese counterpart Wang Yi agreed to increase exchanges and cooperation this year, which marks the 65th anniversary of the signing of a comprehensive treaty on cooperation. Such remarks were made during their talks in Pyongyang on Thursday as China's top diplomat arrived in the north for a two-day visit. According to the North Korean Central News Agency, Choi said Pyongyang would deepen bilateral ties, which she described as having reached a new and higher level. Wang noted that last September's North Korea-China summit was historic and provided landmark guidance for advancing relations further. On the local front, the South Korean government says it'll keep fuel price caps unchanged for the next 2 weeks, citing ongoing volatility in the Middle East and a fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources on Thursday, under the current system, maximum prices will remain at 1,934 Korean won, or $1.31 per liter for gasoline, 1,923 won for diesel, and 1,531 for kerosene. The price cap policy introduced in mid-March is reviewed every 2 weeks to help stabilize domestic fuel costs. Officials say the decision comes as global gasoline prices have dropped sharply, returning to levels seen 2 weeks ago following the announcement of a temporary ceasefire between Washington and Tehran, despite continued disagreements over its terms. And the Bank of Korea has held its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.5%. The decision, the 7th straight freeze, was announced this morning as the central bank faces a complex policy dilemma exacerbated by the situation in the Middle East since late February. Rate cuts remain off the table due to renewed inflationary pressures and foreign exchange instability. South Korea's consumer prices rose 2.2% on year in March, while the Korean won also remains volatile, having weakened to the 1,521 range against the US dollar recently, before rebounding to the 1,481 level. Today's meeting marks Governor Lee Chang-yong's final rate-setting session before his term expires on April 20th. President Lee Jae-myung will hold a summit next Monday with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. In a written briefing this morning, senior Blue House spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung said that Tusk will make a 2-day official visit to South Korea starting Sunday at Lee's invitation. The talks are expected to focus on strengthening South Korea and Poland's strategic partnership in areas including defense and high-tech industries. The two leaders are also set to discuss global issues, including the situation in the Middle East. The summit will be followed by a joint press statement and an official lunch. And South Korea signed a deal to export another batch of K9 self-propelled howitzers to Finland. According to the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, a second export contract was signed in Helsinki between the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency and Finland's Defense Ministry. Under the agreement, Hanwha Aerospace will supply 112 howitzers in a deal worth around $630 million. Finland's decision follows the successful operation of 96 units of K9 howitzers purchased in 2017. The DAPA said the deal highlights the K9 system's proven mobility and firepower in harsh Nordic conditions. And following their comeback show at Gwanghwamun Square last month, BTS have now launched their Arirang World Tour in Goyang, marking their long-awaited return as a full group after nearly 4 years. Our culture correspondent Cho Young-in was there.
Rain poured quite heavily throughout the day, but fans continued to gather outside Goyang Stadium. Ahead of the opening show of the BTS World Tour Arirang, the atmosphere was electric. Many fans took part in various on-site events and activities from the morning while waiting for the show to begin. Despite the weather, some have been waiting for hours, helping to build anticipation by waving light sticks, taking pictures, and singing along to their favorite BTS songs.
We have waited too long for this. She waited almost 10 years, I waited 9 years, so it's been a long wait, and we're finally seeing.
I'm currently waiting for Swim, and we got the album and everything at home. And hopefully I get to see JK up close, I wasn't able to see him back in Seoul. I was in front of a screen.
The fans haven't just been waiting for hours, but for 4 years as the group returns as a full lineup following their comeback event at Gwanghwamun Square. More than 120,000 fans are expected over the 3-day run in Goyang, following concerts on Saturday and Sunday this week. Goyang also holds significance as the hometown of leader RM. Earlier in the day, the city lit up the concert venue and nearby parks in BTS's signature purple. The concert features a 360-degree open stage, marking one of the largest productions in K-pop. The tour will continue through 2027, spanning 85 shows across 34 cities worldwide, while 46 concerts across Goyang, Tokyo, and major cities in North America and Europe have already sold out. About 2.4 million tickets have been sold for 41 shows in North America and Europe alone. Additional dates in Latin America for October have been announced on Wednesday, expanding the scale of the global tour. With their recent success on the Billboard charts, BTS are expected to draw even greater global attention with this tour. 조영은, Arirang News, Goyang.
This is the world now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday announced a 32-hour ceasefire in Ukraine over Orthodox Easter weekend, and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said Kyiv will honor it. The Kremlin ordered Russian forces to halt all military action starting Saturday, April 12th at 4 p.m., running through the end of Sunday, the day Orthodox Christians in Russia and Ukraine celebrate Easter. Ukraine's defense minister directed the military to stand down troops in all directions for the duration of the ceasefire. Zelensky, posting on Telegram, said Ukraine had pushed for an Easter pause for more than a week and called the ceasefire a real chance for Moscow to step back from attacks even after the holiday ends. The announcement echoes a similar 30-hour ceasefire last Easter, which both sides accused each other of violating almost immediately. U.S. First Lady Melania Trump stepped before cameras at the White House on Thursday to deny any connection to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She called years of online speculation linking her to Epstein, quote, lies that must end today, and demanded Congress hold public hearings for Epstein's victims. Melania stated she met Donald Trump at a New York party in 1998, not through Epstein, and that she first crossed paths with Epstein only in 2000 at an event she attended with her husband. She said at that time she had no knowledge of his criminal activity whatsoever. The statement comes after the Justice Department released Epstein files that included a 2002 email Melania sent to Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, which she described Thursday as nothing more than casual correspondence. 40 days after U.S. and Israeli strikes killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei at his Tehran residence, Iranians took to the streets across the country on Thursday to commemorate his death. The memorials began at precisely 9:40 in the morning, the exact time of the attack on February 28th that killed Khamenei, members of his family, and several senior Iranian officials. The new Supreme Leader, Khamenei's son Mujtaba, who was reportedly injured in the same attack, did not attend any of the events. An Israeli court announced on Thursday that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's long-running corruption trial will resume this Sunday. Netanyahu faces charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, charges he has denied. The trial began in 2020, carries potential prison time, and has no end date in sight. It is the first time in Israeli history that a sitting prime minister has faced criminal charges. President Trump has publicly echoed Netanyahu's calls for Israeli President Isaac Herzog to issue a pardon to Netanyahu, citing the burden that regular court appearances place on a wartime leader. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Many regions have been drenched with spring rain. Rain has tapered off, but there could be some lingering rain with around 5 millimeters in the forecast. Meanwhile, eastern parts of Gangwon-do province and Gyeonggi-do province may see sprinkles into the late afternoon. Elsewhere inland, a brief passing shower is still possible later in the day. It's been a cool spring day, and this afternoon, highs will stay lower than season norms again for here in Seoul, getting up to 14 degrees Celsius. Gwangju will be getting up to 15 degrees, but Busan will be nice and warm and sunny at 21 degrees. Looking ahead, mostly sunny skies and warmer temperatures return this weekend. Meanwhile, Jeollanam-do province and Jeju Island could see rain on Sunday afternoon. Then next week looks a lot more promising. Temperatures will stay above 20 degrees Celsius with breezy mornings, but under brighter skies.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.